to retarget another user. And really, in hyper-casual games, that's the main business. It's less so about how much you can push in-app revenue, but more so of how much you can lower customer acquisition costs. And if you look at some of the cheapest areas, let's say in Philippines, hyper-casual games could go as low as like 8 cents to 10 cents for acquisition. So I think what's really, really innovative in the usage of NFTs and tokens is less so about the earning aspect, but how it can be used as a identifier for you to cross-promote users from one game to another. So what we do at Atlas, we have our Como IP, it's Cute Little Dragon. You'll see it on our socials. We cross-promote users from one game to another, it being tied to like an IP, you using NFT as a login option, apart from using email, apart from using Apple ID. So I think the main gist that we will see, especially for hyper-casual games, I say that more because I'm a bit more experienced in that field compared to the AAA side, that people will start using NFTs and interoperability assets as a form of authentication, as a form of cross-promotion, but less so of just purely earnings.
Thank you so much. Now, speaking of games, let's ask, Jason, with regards to that, what are your thoughts, speaking from a game perspective?
Okay, I think one thing interesting about GameFi is that it's combination of game and finance. So I think when it first started, we have to look back at why do we play games back then in 20 years ago, like you say, Ragnarok. So back then I was still a kid. So basically I played that game, MMORPG. So what happens is that last time when we want to get an item, we want to sell this item, it's very tedious. You have to go to forum, you go to a place where you tell them that, okay, let's meet at this particular cyber cafes, then I drop the items, you pick up the items, then that is how we actually trade the items. But with the advancement of blockchain technologies, we are now able to have a full ownership of that particular items in the form of NFTs. So these NFTs prove that you own that items, and then you can actually just sell it on marketplace safely, list up the price, people can buy it and use it in the game. So you no longer need to purposely go to a place, drop it, and then someone using hack, just pick it up, and then how are you going to deal with that? So I mean, that is the innovation that we are looking at. So back to play to earn itself, we also try to not brand ourselves as a play to earn game. We brand ourselves as a win to earn game in the sense that you will need to be involved in the game, understand the game, know how to actually play the game to actually earn it. So we don't want people that think of play to earn game as a way of grinding, so every day they just come in, do some boring stuff, and then earns, and then they leave. So that is our perspective in terms of GameFi. So we try to make it a lot more fun. We look at the cute perspective, casual game. Because in AAA games, it takes very long time to actually build something. So if we were to go to that area, the only thing that we can replace is the item buying, selling parts in the MMORPG. But I think we foresee that in the future, the game companies, all the GameFi projects will have to focus much more on the social element, why people play games, because the world is stressed. So they want to de-stress, they want to just quickly play a quick game. And earning itself can be a secondary. So if we focus too much on the earning part, then the game won't be fun. The game will be more towards the investment part. So I think that is my perspective in game, and our team is working on much more on social element. We want people to feel de-stressed. They want people to actually enjoy the game, and we focus much more on the graphics, on the casual side, the social side of the things. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Just wanted to add on something and also probably play the devil advocates here, right? So you mentioned about a play to earn, a win to earn. I feel that right now, some of the key issues that I would say we're talking about GameFi 2.0, right? Let's talk about GameFi itself, right? The previous project has been focusing on, and I noticed there are a slight shift on that, is that there's too much focus on the buzzword, right? The buzzword of the century, play to earn, right? Play to earn, and right now, play to earn is kind of like the dirty word. They were saying like, okay, let's not use play to earn, what's next, right? So I do feel that games itself, or project itself, shouldn't focus too much on those buzzwords and make it on a more layman level, especially if you want to capture much more community in some sense where they have to understand that, yes, I do agree with you that you have to make the game itself fun, but the mechanics itself has to be much more layman if you want to capture those, and not just focus on those buzzwords itself, like my personal opinion.
Yeah. I think I was going to say in the early days, it started with play to earn. After a few months later, it became play and earn. We were saying a few months later, it's just play.
It's like the Google SEO nonsense all over again, right? I mean, we just have to focus on something that we just not too focused on the buzzword. I feel project have to not just focus too much on the buzzword. I mean, Felix, You know, when projects share with you as a venture perspective, definitely you do have that sort of element into it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, my view is that, and not wanting to take too much time so that Belle can speak, I think games can target, actually, you don't have to, yeah, so I think that what I saw during those changes, during those period of time, it was that games were pivoting, which is fine, because even us, we also pivot along the way, right? That's what a new industry is all about. But the issue that I have is that when you pivot, you sort of have to commit to that pivot lah. So if it's play to earn, then figure out a way to make play to earn work. I actually think that it is possible to make play to earn work and have playing games replace an actual income, again depending on which country you're from, but in a different format to the Axie Infinity format that we all are very familiar with. It is possible, but some project needs to sort of set their mind to it and say, I'm going to make play to earn work, and then just fucking make it work lah, but not just I'm going to try to make it work, and if it doesn't work, then I'm going to go to like play to the next buzzword, right? And that I'm not very in agreement with. So it is possible. It's play to earn, play to win, play to own, play to whatever. I think everything is fine, but I think what's missing from the GameFi industry is the commitment to actually make it work.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, guys. So yeah, coming from a traditional perspective, Belle, from a traditional perspective, you have been working on traditional games. What are your thoughts on this? And what are some of the latest trends that you do foresee?
Yeah, feel free to jump in. I'm quite okay. So I think for us, it's really, it goes back to the fact that even during our early launch of our flagship game, it's called the Cooking Game. And this game has gone so successful that we did it on the web apps, mobile apps, VR, AR. And right now, we think that this is going to be 18 months later, GameFi 2.0 for us. So I still think that creating a strong IP that own a community, we do have this upper hand advantage on that. So we do have a following, even for our VR users, right? If your game is not sticky, if your IP is not good, people are not staying. The fact that from 2015, when we launched the VR, that was 1 year after Facebook bought Oculus, until today, it is still the top 6 VR cooking game, not said by us, by Oculus, based on statistics. I think we are quite fortunate on the IP side that we get one IP that is ongoing and is doing well. But that said, we are quite aware that we cannot rely on a single IP. Therefore, our team has put in a lot of resources to work on the technologies part. So going back to your questions, what is the next big wave for us is really the technologies that we have developed since 2015 days, where we own this fundamental infrastructure of producing VR games, AR games, and we are even going on to get people like, our clientele includes people like Marina Bay Sands, includes all these tier A venues, because we believe that in order to go into mass adoption, we need traditional big folks to jump in and co-create this. So to us, it's really working hard on the technology portion as well, secondly. Recently, we have launched ChatGPT powered function on WhatsApp itself. So how we do it is, we have what we call a meta portal for traditional user acquisition. And every day, we have at least 5,000 people standing in front of Meta Portal and get into our little metaverse. Then we get them scan a QR code. They move into our WhatsApp function where we keep them updated, even though we don't launch any game as of now, but we keep them updated on what's going on, what we are doing. They can play, they can entertain, they can ask any questions using the ChatGPT function, and they can even turn their face into different avatars using the Stable Diffusion function. So what I see is a next big wave is the fact that we can do text to image, text to environment. That will be the next big thing where games is created by the community. They can just type whatever they want and they can get the game that they envision. I see co-creation as a next big wave.
Thank you so much, Bell, for sharing. So I think we have a few alignment and emphasis on the community portion, right? Which brings down to my next question. We have seen huge community in multiple GameFi projects, right? In the Discord group, in the Telegram group, so on and so forth. However, most have been stagnated after the project launch, right? Right? So I'm sure most of the project founders here do agree with me that once the project is launched, most projects pretty much, lack of a better word, don't give a shit, right? So how do you foresee the increase in community engagement, or I'll say adding on more utilities? Do you see how do you scale it from there, making it much more sustainable? Felix, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think this is the exact problem with the GameFi space or the play to earn or play to whatever space, right? The problem here is this is not a gaming problem. This is a business problem. When you start a business, there's a lot of hype, and then after the hype, it's like opening what's that? Zhou Jielun Cafe.
Yeah.
Magic Coffee or something, Fantasy, I don't know, whatever, right? Like this
Yeah.
coffee shop that he opened, and then the coffee is like $15 per cup, right? Here at MBS, then when it opened, the freaking queue was there and all, and then now it's empty, right? Because Sao Paulo serves coffee at half the price and it's twice as good. So they can't keep them, but so it's not a GameFi problem, it's not a Web3 problem, it's a business problem. And the problem here is this, and which is why I was quite happy to hear Stelston mention it, which is acquiring new customers, acquiring new users, acquiring new fans, coming back to community. I think in order to make a community vibrant, it needs to grow. A community that doesn't grow will probably not be very vibrant, right? So I think projects need to figure out how to constantly grow their community in order to bring new views, new blood, new feedback, new arguments into their community, so that the old guys are now, or the guys, the OG guys, are instigated to talk again. Because if we hang out every single day, we'll soon run out of things to talk about, right? And then we get Elson to come, and then Chishan to come, then we have more and more things to talk about. I mean, that's very simple. This is just 5 people, right? So whether it's 5 people, 5,000, 50,000 people, it's exactly the same thing. If the community doesn't grow, if a project doesn't know how to acquire users, or is unable to acquire users, or don't even know the cost per acquisition in Indonesia or Philippines or Thailand to be 8 cents, 10 cents, 12 cents, or don't know how to acquire, then I think the community is dead. It cannot depend, regardless of how big it is when it first started. So rather than think of new things to engage an existing community, my view is projects should always be acquiring.
So from IFLA's perspective then, being a project that has been putting a lot of emphasis on the community, what are your thoughts, Elston?
Yeah, I think the point about just decreased engagement is maybe 3 things. One is it started with the marketing angle of like play to earn. So naturally when your earnings go down, less people look at the space, right? And everything is anchored on earnings. Even if you increase emissions, the total pack value also goes down. So you can't blame them for not doing that, right? It's just like you market a food court and you stop selling like nice food, no one will come. I think that's the first point. The second point is also a lot of these large platforms have started taking anti-botting measures, both on Discord and on Twitter. I remember there was a week we saw maybe 5 to 10% dip in our Twitter following. So like something happened here. Then after we started reading up about it, we went to check like prominent personalities, right? Look at Elon Musk's account, Obama. Everybody took a dip in that week. So I think that was kind of like when Elon started pushing a lot of like anti-botting, taking out fake accounts. So that's point 2. I think point 3 also is just there's less companies in the space innovating. We hear of other founders, they left their assets on FTX, or they went to stake their funds and they have less runway. So there's also less companies in the space. So I think mainly these 3 points aggregated together, you start to slowly see things less about decreasing, but just trending back to the norm, which previously maybe 1.5 accounts were just like botted. So now it just brings you back to the norm. So apart from all those glooming news, I think there's some things to be optimistic about. In, let's say, 2021, total amount of funding that went into crypto, Web3, 40% was for gaming companies. And folks here would say that the average life cycle, lead time for a game to be built is 2 to 3 years. So if you think about it, a lot of the major launches are going to be happening end of this year or early next year, just like Felix already alluded to. Some of the large AAA companies are already pushing out their beta. So I think it'll be less about predicting what is the trend, which is the big token to pump, or more importantly, which are the large fun games that are slowly coming to the space. So actually, I do think that the lead up to 2023, things will be a lot more exciting.
Yep, thank you so much. I do agree with both Felix and Elston on your perspective on this, but let's hear from a game perspective once again.
Okay, yeah. Actually, my co-founder actually started a gaming studio in 2012. So he has been building a lot of mobile games since iPhone 3, GS, and all that. So he shared a very interesting perspective. Is that usually a game once you launch it, within 2 weeks' time, you will actually have a lesson hype. So every time we launch a new features, people will come back to play the game. But after 1 or 2 weeks, it will actually slow down. So what happens is that we have to keep on listening to the community. We talk to them, we get their views on the game. Then we have to keep them engaged. Because a lot of projects that come out during the play to earn hype is that they raise funds and then they tell you that they will build this, but they don't listen to the community, what they actually want. They don't really care about what are the things that they are interested in. So one thing is that they will usually tell you that they are interested in earnings, but we know that if we project purely focusing on earning, it will not be there. So we focus our games much more on the fun part. We have our updates every month. So every month we commit ourselves to at least have updates. So we reset the leaderboards, we talk to players, so they feedback like, okay, the new updated patch, so this particular character is more overpowered, then we nerf it in the next month. Then this one is actually, people don't like this character because of the damage is too low and all that. So we have to keep on engaged with them to keep them feel happy, they likes it, they will get their friends to come. So when they get their friends to come, our community will not be stagnant. It will increase, in fact. But I think from the hype itself, we can see a deep drop for all the projects, including us. But we are slowly getting more people that understands the project and not just comes in and say when moon. So we don't want people like that as well, because that is the most thing that we usually get. Like when moon, when are we going to see a boom?
When mean.
Yeah.
When moon, when mean.
Yeah, so that is the standard for the crypto scene. So I think we slowly go back to the basic. We tell ourselves, we tell the team, we have to go back to the basics. Why do we play games in the first place? Is it because, last time we play games, we have party quests where, 5 people after the school get back home, go online and start playing the game. So we want to get back that kind of feelings back. Because I think as we focus much more on AAA games, nowadays just focus on graphics. And actually a lot of games, even with Blizzards and all that, they don't get that much people to play their games anymore compared to back then. So they focus too much on graphics, focus too much on, for blockchain games, it's focus too much on earnings, and we lose out very fundamental things. Games are supposed to be fun. So if we are able to do this right, I think the whole GameFi industry will be better. So yeah, that's my perspective.
I actually just want to touch on a few points that you pointed out also, right? So you talk about engaging with your community, trying to get feedback from them, and then using that to improve, launch a new feature, and these guys then come back again. But then the community doesn't grow. But one thing that I've caught from what you shared is that why, so the question is, why would you want to do that? You want to do that because these guys come in, they play, they find it fun, and then they bring their friends in, right? So that sort of helps to sort of reinforce the point that I was trying to make. I think in order for the community to be vibrant, in order for the community to give more valuable feedback to a project, the community needs to grow. And that point, I constantly say it at every single panel, every single event that I go to, because I think projects, whether they are games or they are just Web3 projects or just businesses in general, are not focusing enough on acquiring new users, acquiring new followers. There will always be attrition, right? There will always drop-offs. Yeah, but at the end of the day, business is a numbers game. You need more, and then those will drop off, and then they will stay, and hopefully the number that stay was more than what happened before. And then you have to keep acquiring more players, acquiring more users. Obviously, engaging with existing people and then getting them to introduce their friends is sort of free CPA. I mean, CPA is almost zero, right? Because you're not paying for ads. But there are obviously other ways I think that the project should explore more in terms of growing their community.
Yeah, actually, not just that. If you're talking about people that are dropping out, are they dropping out permanently or are they dropping out just because they're busy? Because we realize that they are dropping out when the game launched after 2 weeks. So they already tried all the new things. Then they temporary dropout. When we launch a new features, a new patch, they will come back again. So that is a very interesting thing because we try to track our users' behavior. We try to keep the numbers in hand. So that is what you mentioned, very useful insights, is to keep your numbers in hand. So if you know how your players are behaving, if you know how they actually, people come and go. They come in when the games is very fresh, people talk about it, then they play. But after a while, it gets boring, then okay, they stop a while. But once in a while, they will come back and visit, there's a new update. So we realize this kind of trends exist in the game, so that's why we keep on engaging with them and keep on building. And yeah, for sure, we have to get more new users to come in, so to make sure that whole industry actually continues working.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with regards to the campaign portions, as well as focusing more on not just the user acquisition campaign, but also the user retention campaign as well. Yep. So Belle, do you have anything to add on as well, coming from, again, a traditional game perspective?
Yeah. I think I will add on 2 points. First is also the demographic for us. So we do have a very unique demographic. Our games is 80% played by female. So that helps in terms of the later on like acquisition or even retention or working with brands. It really helps. Then second point is on different way of acquiring users. We not right now we have evolved such that we know we cannot only rely on the online way of acquiring users. We also put different portals everywhere to do offline acquiring. So just that.
If I can ask, I just want to learn because 60% of our users are females. So what kind of acquisition strategies work best for you? I mean, apart from like the channels, and female demographic is an interesting one. Even from a monetization point of view, they're almost 2 times much more monetizable than a male demographic, right? So what's the acquisition channel? What's the secret sauce that have worked well so far?
So far for us, we even dissect down to their age and all that. So you can dissect further. So let's say for a female 40 years old, staying in, let's say Australia, housewife demographic, then because the cooking game by itself is like very tailor-made for them. And what we have been doing is really we push out, depending on your demographic, we really push out those content that is tailor-made for them, their age, what they like to see. For example, their age, right? Usually they would like to see some babies-related stuff or like those stuff. Yeah, you just really gel back their daily life, what they like, and match it back to them. So that's how we have been doing it. Secondly, you cannot believe that I really go out to meet my users as well. It's a bit too much, but I really do that because how I got into gaming, I used to be a lawyer, nothing to do with gaming and all that. But I do this because it was my passion as well. I played the cooking game. So I didn't play the VR version. I played the cooking game. Then I was so hooked. But I have so much feedback to tell them, like, you know, you can do this better, you can this, that. Then I sort of like contacted the founder, and subsequently I recruited him to be my co-founder. That's how I do it. But yeah, so I really go out to meet my users and talk to them, just not every one of them, of course, but selectively, especially whale user. Once you identify them, you need to know what they like, what they don't like, talk to them, get the points, then you get the K factor as well. They will bring in even more people.
Is it mainly organic acquisition, or do you also test paid acquisition?
So we do both. So after some time, we realized online version, especially after the iOS update, it's really quite hard to really attribute back the online way of acquiring users, just like those old days. So now we even go down to offline. We partner up with KOLs. Then we share like a lifestyle. Instead of selling them a game, you share it like a lifestyle. You know, you are doing this. It's a lifestyle.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. For the interest of time, before I move on to the last quick topic of the day, right, since we are just probably left with like little less than 7 minutes. Just want to add on to my perspective with regards to that portion as to Belle, what you mentioned. I think it's quite commendable with regards to what you say, you know, really meeting the users and stuff. But I think for GameFi project owners, if you guys are in the audience here today, my take will be that you have to really compare between the traditional games and the GameFi projects that both have succeeded and failed, and draw the factors from there. I feel that user acquisition campaign is very, very important, but so is your user retention campaign. And I think in that aspect, user acquisition campaign, the GameFi projects has been doing it very, very well. But in terms of user retention, the Web2 space has been doing much better. So the reason why is that, so if you have to look at it, way back when Mobile Legends first started, before they became a 10-ton gorilla behemoth right now, right, is that they started with local community campaigns, local tournaments. They connect with the local communities by, you know, having their fan base constantly talking about it, right? You don't have to create new campaigns. You don't have to keep throwing out new cash, new tokens, new NFTs just to attract them to stay. But really, it's about creating that conversation. Back to what Felix was sharing, that sort of conversation and connecting with them. Yes, getting new users, definitely agree with Felix, right? It's very important to fill up those dropouts. But then again, back to what Jason has said as well, is that having that sort of retention is important, which is why you really have to focus on those smaller tournaments, smaller campaigns for your existing users, because you don't want to overlook them, right? It's like a never-ending like stampede that you keep finding new guys, and then the old guys drop out, new guys, the old guys drop out. It's just throwing money non-stop. So I think that's just something for food for thought. So for the last topic of today, I will probably want to do a quick summary just to sum it up, right? Probably, how do you think that GameFi can enable new business models for the gaming side of things, aside from the standard play to earn? And of course, what do you think are the implications for traditional gaming models as well?
GameFi, I think, GameFi is sort of, it's a game. It's really a game, and then, you know, the finance comes later. And then if nobody wants to talk about play to earn anymore, then there's no fi, like, there's just games. So yeah, I think games, this gamification of things has been going around for the longest time. It's nothing new. The only thing that's new now is that it's sort of lives on the blockchain. I don't think games will, while this GameFi or this Web3 games will specifically bring about some new applications to the real world. Today, I've not seen any of these models actually happen yet. But I actually think that gamification itself as a concept, again, has been around for the longest time. And perhaps some blockchain technology can eventually be applied to it. But there's no specific use cases that I've seen. Maybe Alston can share.
Yeah, I think maybe more for us is we are pretty big on the idea of interoperability. Right now in Web2 game, for example, a lot of your assets, a lot of your account progress can't be ported over through different games. Even if certain games have like sequels, right? Not every company want the users to be able to bring over their progress. There's a bit of like game balancing issue, a bit of like technical issue. But what we're doing in Web3 is we're really pushing on this idea of using an NFT as an identifier across games. So right now we have an ecosystem of around 30, 40 different projects. We make our NFTs and our tokens interoperable both ways. So for us, for our assets and their assets, we do think that there could be a decentralized world where different gaming projects find ways to use NFTs as identifiers to port over like progress, port over items, port over maybe even some of their in-game currencies. I think what might also be interesting is the idea of reselling progress or your status. I think what's interesting is years ago being able to sell your MapleStory level 70 account on Carousel has always been around, right? And it was very hassle. It was a big hassle because you have to pass them your whole email, your whole password. But I think what NFTs could do is make that a lot more easy. If I want to sell you my ML account, I don't have to send you all my personal details. I can just send you as an asset. But of course, there's other implications on which chain you're on. How do you make sure that EVM compatible chains are compatible with like non-EVM chains? There's a lot of that. But I think maybe personally, in the context of this, right, interoperable NFTs, where the company believes could be a profitable area is the marketplace. I think some of the panelists also mentioned before, just facilitating the transaction of incentives for a user, less so of doing it for the company. I think that's where most companies will slowly veer to and where users find it most palatable.
Okay. Jason, you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I think a few things that to add on here is that one thing is that we see that the game itself, you mentioned that we are facilitating the marketplace and all that, but looking into the partnership itself, we are looking at a lot of brands want to come into the game space. A lot of brands want to be with the NFT games and all that. So groundworks can be done. We can do esports and all that, just like Web 2. So once we have that, I think a lot more brands and all that can come in with us. So not just on the Web3 people. I realized that when we call ourselves Web 2 and Web 3, we are separating the community. Like, you know, I'm a Web 3 founder, you're a Web 2 founder, yeah, the boring stuff. No, I think we shouldn't have that border. We have to collaborate together, Web 2, Web 3, in real life events. Because I think what happens is that this COVID thingy let us know that, you know, stay at home, start playing games. So we sort of lose the human touch already. So I think this is something that we need to look back into it and really have more in real life events with real partners and do more groundworks and PvP esport games and all that. Yeah, that is my view.
Sorry, just to step in real quick, this topic is something I'm very passionate about with regards to the Web 2 and Web 3 side of things. Because we do act like kind of like a bridge, right? We work with both the Web 2 and Web 3 guys. I think generally it's not that people are differentiating Web 2 and Web 3. It's just that most Web 2, if you look at it, right, the games, they create, back to the topic, right, the business model, right, they have a whole ecosystem surrounding it. Like you look at the Riot franchise league, right? Like literally people's lives are depending on Riot. Not just the players, the coaches, the analysts, the EOs, the event organizers. I've seen the companies that, event organizers, right, they just do Riot games. So the moment, let's say Riot close shop, right, they can just sack their whole team already, right? Because that's the whole power of the whole business, right? Like there's so many things, not just the event organizers, there's like literally every single one of the entire ecosystem in place. But why Web 2 games normally don't really, or I would say Web 2 vendors don't really dare to work with the Web 3 one is because they see the lack of sustainability from there, right? They don't dare to go all in like, yeah, I'm gonna hire 10 guys. I believe that this game is gonna work like 3 seasons or 3 years long, right, in terms of competition. They see that lack of trust, per se. So I feel that with that, also speaking from a Web3 perspective, they can't commit that amount of money with regards to that. So I think it's really about the bite-sized sort of things and managing the expectations, right? So that's my personal perspective. So yeah, to sum it up, Belle, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah. I think time is up, so I will keep this short. For us, it's really working with not dissecting Web 2 or Web 3, working with platforms that has a lot of users, simply to say that, because that is really our next big thing. And we believe that games is like a lifestyle to us, not so much of the other factors. Yeah, cheers.
Thank you so much, Belle. And thank you so much, everyone, as fellow speakers, and of course the audiences. I hope you liked the panel discussion today. And thank you. Here we will end our panel discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks.
A round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen, to our moderator and panelists with the topic of GameFi 2.0, the next big thing in crypto. Okay, next, let's welcome our speaker, Srikant Kajam, General Manager and Principal Architect of Architect of Emerging Technologies at Mercedes-Benz Singapore. He will be catching a topic called Fueling Enterprise Data Journey with Blockchain. So let's welcome once again Srikant Kajal, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. I think we have listened to a very interesting aspect of how tokenization can be used in the gaming industry. But what I am going to present